Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Police and Crime Panel. Please note that the proceedings at this meeting at this moment will be recorded and streamlined. Before we proceed in line with the panel proceedings, I would like to bring to your attention some housekeeping matters. If you wish to speak during the meeting, I would ask that you raise your hand and wait for the chair, myself, to invite you to speak. There is no expected fire alarms testing today. Therefore, if a fire alarm sounds, please follow the fire and emergency procedures that are explained at the Council House. Please note also that when using your microphone when addressing the meeting, that it is switched off when you are not using it. Your mobile devices are turned to silent. I will now move to the item 1 of the meeting. Apologies. Jake?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor Hodgetts. Councillor Burnett is substituting. Councillor Roger, Barry Jones, the independent member for Devon, Councillor Lever and Councillor Loudon.
Thank you very much. And can I welcome those members that are substituting for today's meeting? And I know some members were a little bit concerned due to weather, so thank you for braving that today. Moving on to item 2 is the minutes of our last meeting that was held on Friday the 21st of November. I'm quite happy to go through the pages. So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9. I see there's no raise of hands, so I would say that everybody is happy for me to sign the minutes. Have I got full agreement? Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 3, delegation of interest. Does any members have any delegations of interest at today's meeting? I see no show of hands, so we'll move on to item 4, which is public questions, and there has been no public questions for today's meeting. And moving on to item 5. Before I hand over to the Commissioner to present the item, I would like to ask members to hold any questions until after the Commissioner has finished her presentation. I will then ask any questions for clarification before moving on to the panel debate. If members have recommendations as part of that proposal, I ask that you clearly outline it as a recommendation. Okay. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Well done, as the Chair said, for getting here through some of the most difficult times we've had down in Devon and Cornwall recently. And I wanted to just thank all the local authorities, the emergency workers, all the volunteers that are all helping get our 2 counties back on their feet after the terrible storms and floods that we've had. You know, just our train service not being able to work and getting to London to get our voice heard this week has not been possible. Our roads being shut and the challenges that we've had for people driving through floods, needing rescuing and all sorts of things. And I will say I'm just delighted that we all come together, which is what we'll always do, to deal with these incidences. And we've had a number of unexploded bombs recently as well, where we've been working together to tackle that as well. So we're really good at doing things ourselves, but as we'll find out with our budget, we do need help from the government sometimes, and I'm sure there's asks that we've all got that we would like to see a little bit more help from the government. But just going into how I'll do this morning as normal, I'll give you a bit of the oversight of what's happening. Nikki Allen, the Treasurer, will go through the detail of the budget, and then I've got Chief Constable Vaughan, who will give you an outline of some of what the force is planning on delivering as well, and some updates for you. I'll also think you've got the video. I thought I'd start with something really simple and save me having to say it for half an hour. Got a 2-minute video just to give you what the year looks like in numbers and give you a bit of a flavour. Thank you. And it's also thanks to you that we've managed to achieve a number of those things, from setting the budget last year to keep our officer numbers high, and also to ensure that our communities are getting some CCTV. So thank you for promoting that we had the opportunity to do that this year. What I will just talk a little bit about is the white paper that came out this week, which I believe rocks the foundations on which basic principles of policing are built, albeit not necessarily in the ways it's intended. Policing has the ability to deprive us of our liberty and use force against us. And it must be underpinned and checked by the consent of our communities. This is currently achieved through the directly elected role of the Police and Crime Commissioner, who can appoint and dismiss a Chief Constable, who is the person who sets the tone and culture of the operational policing in a force area. But I'm also accountable to the residents for raising taxes to pay for policing, and I take this responsibility very seriously. And as I've always said, if you pay more, you get more. Sadly, this year, the government has forced my hand, and of all police and crime commissioners up and down the country, with a structurally flawed funding settlement. This is all familiar ground to you, because I know your local authorities are also struggling with the financial settlements that have happened this year, even with a funding formula change. So let me say now that I believe that this proposal before you will secure the stability of our police officer numbers for the next 12 months, maintaining our record number of 3,610, all under the leadership of our excellent Chief Constable James Vaughan as he continues to improve the force's performance. And on top of this challenge, I want to turn attention to something that's fundamental to us all. The democratic mandate that I have been given by the public for the last 10 years is to be abolished, as you're aware. So there's a democratic deficit coming down the track. And what I mean by this is, in the absence of a directly elected mayor for Devon and Cornwall, a police and crime board will be established consisting of the leaders of the upper tier councils. Consequently, those overseeing policing in Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly would be reduced to the voices of those who represent less than 6,000 people. By comparison, I was elected by over 130,000. The changes will mean that power will be invested in fewer people.
Chair, point of order. 6,000 people is not right, even if you were just to take it at ward level. So I think that the Commissioner might have got a wrong figure there that she might wish to retract, because the leaders of councils represent everyone within their council areas, and therefore the number of people they represent would be exactly the same as her. I think it diminishes, and I think the Commissioner needs to be careful to give truth when we're talking about issues of such magnitude.
Do you want me to continue?
Would you like to retract?
I'm doing a direct comparison of the elected votes for those individuals. So it is factual what I'm saying about the elected votes for those individuals. That's.
In which case, Chair, that is not correct, because there are more. Sorry, in which case, Chair, that is not correct, because the Commissioner cannot know which the leaders of the councils will be at the point
based on
of change.
today's leaders.
And so I think that she's not comparing like with like in order to do things. At the start of a budget speech that is now not about a budget but causing political things where misinformation is being shared as well, I think this is disrespectful to all of the leaders of the councils and also disrespectful to us.
Chair, I hear what Councillor Penberthy is saying. I'm not planning to be disrespectful. I'm trying to give you my perspective of what a democratic deficit looks like. But if you let me continue, it might also become clearer, Chair.
I think also, Commissioner, if you could probably try and keep to the budget that we're here for as well. And do you know what I mean?
So I'm doing the budget in the context of the strategy that's coming from the government at the moment and the policy direction, so that members are aware why what I'm setting and planning today will make sense. So I appreciate your concerns, Chair. Thank you. The other challenge that I will talk about is, and this is where it goes, Councillor Penberthy, is that the Home Secretary is also taking more powers, which is a further disconnection from the geographic length and breadth of Devon and Cornwall Police. We are the largest police force in England with 4,000 square miles, a network of 13,500 miles and 730 miles of coastline, with policing stretching 12 nautical miles out to sea. This is a full-time job, and to engage with our communities and hold the police to account, as you know, policing is a 24/7, 365 days service. As well as crime, the police play a vital role in civic emergencies, as we've all seen very recently, and safety, such as the recent storms and unexploded bombs. This will add a huge complex burden to already overstretched, overworked councillors and officers, especially those busy with local government reorganisation. And I have sympathy for the challenge that we face ahead. And with no mayor planned, it will be up to local councils to set up the new arrangements. So I'm hoping that policing and crime will be able to remain a priority within the complexities that we've got going forward. The Home Secretary is also taking some of our powers. So councillors will need to be aware. One is the ability to dismiss chief constables. However, at the moment, because of those powers haven't been taken, we're having sackings at the dispatch box. And I hope that those powers will be clarified of the best way to deal with chief constables, because they are a Crown servant and work to keep the King's peace, and no other public servant would be sacked at a dispatch box. So to be clear, I'd just like to say, in terms of the role of the panel, which you'll also not be here in a couple of years, I ask that we try and work together to make the new arrangements work for our communities as best we can. I'm just concerned with the establishment of the Police National Service that's been announced in the White Paper. It's recreating the old National Police Improvement Agency, and while it can give greater oversight by bringing several existing companies into one, such as the College of Policing, Police Digital Service, Blue Light Commercial, in the first instance, it will be years away from being a national police service. So I don't want expectations to be high that we will have this national police service ready to deliver operationally for our communities. I don't think we'll see any change for our communities within the current lifetime of this Parliament. One of the things that's quite clear is absolutely there's a determination that we will look at police force mergers. The government has indicated that they expect police forces to merge, and that the funding formula allocated will not change until post-mergers have been established. So while they could probably create more reform by changing the funding formula and getting some things changed quickly, smaller forces are really struggling. And they are encouraging us to merge with other forces. And as you know, we are an area that did look at the feasibility of merging with Dorset Police in the past. So we'll need to work together, and in the next 6 months, there's an independent review by the government in terms of looking at what those new structures for police forces should look like. So we have quite a lot of work to do in the next 6 months to influence what we'd like the shape of our policing in our region to be. I'm planning to make sure we've got as much information accessible and created a page on my website at the moment, my office's website, so that we can keep information in one place of things that are happening. But I'll turn more detail now to the budget precept summary. In the context of what we've got happening, hopefully you'll see today that we always, as you know, in Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, put our communities first. They're always in our mind in every decision that we make. And our residents place their trust in us to make the right decisions for them. We do this in sometimes difficult circumstances where political life can become very difficult, very challenging, and also very personal. And I've appreciated the collegiate nature of this panel and the challenge and constructive criticism that you have given to me in my office to enable us to have strong decisions. So my focus today is on the leadership, and my ask is of you that you play your part in securing a sustainable budget for Devon and Cornwall Police, so that we can lower crime and antisocial behaviour and protect the police officer numbers we have worked and paid for out of our own pockets. I want to reassure our residents that we listen and act in their interests. And an example of that listening mode is that I have added theft to the police and crime plan that was published last January. And you've already seen that we've had a massive increase in the reporting of shoplifting on the back of that. And we've also had a 16% increase just in the last year of shoplifting offences. That's 1,569. And especially with the help of the investment in that better crime reporting system, and thank you for those that have been promoting it in your communities, there is also a belief that the police will act, and they are, because the system does much of the work for them. So our resident survey is also showing that those who select confident or extremely confident in Devon and Cornwall Police has increased over the year. And our communities do see Devon and Cornwall Police with higher regard than they do UK policing as a whole. Just so that you're reassured, we've been delivering on the savings that we did from the last budget and what we've got planned in this year's budget. Based on the financial assumptions, and we did get the final information about the settlement yesterday in writing, so there is some new news to share with you today that won't be in the paperwork, which Nikki Allen will inform you of. But we will require savings of 17.2 million by 2029. 9.9 million of those savings are included in this proposed budget, so it's quite a chunk that's coming out next year. The Chief Constable is changing the way we allocate resources against priorities to ensure value for money, and James will touch on this a little bit more when he speaks. But we have also worked to reduce down the costs of the OPCC, and I know the challenge from previous meetings, we've reduced it to 0.64. It's always been 0.65, and we had overspent the previous year. So we've managed to bring that one down, as I promised I would. The funding formula for policing remains unchanged by the last government, and there is no plans to change it in this Parliament. However, the second Homes Council tax levy does go in some way to recognise our unique challenges in Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, and we are very grateful as we are still one of the larger receivers of that than other forces in the country. And coming up this year, we face the impending local government reorganisation with Devon, and the budget settlement from the government at the moment is challenging for all of us. It's below the costs to cover the uplift from the previous government. So you know the 20,000 that we were given allocations based on our funding formula to recruit the officers. So this is how many officers you have to recruit based on the funding formula. Well, because large forces like the Met could not deliver on their allocations, it was offered up around the country for forces that could deliver more recruitment to do more recruitment. And we were offered about 3 or 4 times, extra, and we delivered on that for the government. However, the funding arrangements for that grant was based per officer. It was based on headcount of those extra officers that we funded. This settlement has, by what we can understand, has changed the allocation linked to the funding formula rather than the head count of the officers that we've recruited. And that's why we have the £3.1 million gap that is completely unplanned savings that we have to find next year. This year coming, but the next year, finance year. So I'm more than aware there are policing challenges that are happening at the moment, and I'm more than aware that there's challenges in local government. And I'm even more aware that there are challenges in each and every household in Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. Equally stressful times for everyone with the cost of living crisis. And it's our duty to bear this in mind in setting a precept. It's difficult to ask for more money when times are hard. And I'm really pleased that many local authorities offer very good schemes for those in hardship and to enable people to claim up to 100% support on their council tax for the poorest in our communities. So I hope that you know that value for money is at the forefront of my mind, and I'm aware that this is a priority for everyone. It's a balancing act between maintaining services whilst looking for marginal efficiency gains. So after careful consideration and balancing the demands and opportunities that I have described, my proposal is for a total precept increase of £15 for this year, which equates to a council tax band D equivalent of £303.20. This represents an increase of 5.2% on the band D equivalent of the police element of the council tax for 2025 to 26 financial year. And currently band D households pay £28.82 a month over 10 months, and it will rise to £30.32 if they pay over 10 months. I know we work best for our communities when we work together, and you've graciously supported my previous budget proposals, so I do ask that you support me in the precept increase of 5.2% equivalent to £15. And I'll hand over to Nikki Allen to let you understand the structural funding and how this all works.
Good morning. I have got a range of slides here that I will go through. I won't dwell on too many of them. The slides will be available to all members, and I will focus on the financial data and information that we've used for the MTFS. However, as you will appreciate, we have done further work and further input. We've extensively talked to the Chief Constable, and you will see his letter attached to the papers. We've also undertaken the survey with the community, which is attached to the papers as well. So if we look at the overall position of where we are, this is the national data and the national increase to policing. And as the Commissioner said, we did actually get the final settlement very late on Wednesday. I think we'd all gone home by the time the letter had come through. So what we're looking at here is an overall additional increase in national funding to 796 million. So what we are looking at is there are two changes between the provisional settlement and the final settlement fundamentally. And one of those is to do with the continuation of the serious violence duty funding of 657,000. We were all of the impression this would cease on the 31st of March 2026. It is being continued for another year. The other element that has been included is a new element to do with a knife crime concentrations fund. And this is being given to forces that have a concentration of knife crime. We have very limited detail as to what this is about. We don't know the criteria or the conditions yet, or whether the areas will be specified by the government. But for Devon and Cornwall, we are due to receive £487,000 to do with that. It has also been confirmed that hotspot policing will cease. There will not be funding for hotspot policing in 26-27. That will now be put into business as usual. So for this slide, the middle line indicates the overall national funding for policing across England and Wales, so that you can see that the increase for grant is 339 million. We have a new grant of 50 million, which is to do with the second year of the neighbourhood policing. The estimated precept for the nation is 364 million. This is based on all commissioners going up to the maximum of £15. And as you will probably be aware, is that we have been offered additional flexibilities if we wanted to apply. The Commissioner has not applied for that, but other areas did, and we don't have the results of that because that's just been given to the areas on Wednesday that may have got that increase. It's not been publicly announced. So overall, we have an increase of 4.5% in policing nationally. The line at the bottom indicates how that translates for Devon and Cornwall. So for us, the grant increase that was national was 3.8%. We get 2.8%. And it is as a result of how the Commissioner indicated that they've redistributed a grant we were getting on headcount. And for that basis, we were getting 4.7% of that grant. It's now in core, and we get 2.35%. So that's a difference of 2.5 million for us that we've now lost. And the others, I think, are all self-explanatory. But what that means for us is that overall, Devon and Cornwall get an increase in overall funding based on national figures of 4.2%. The precept element of the 364 million, just so that you're aware, as I said, talks about the £15 maximum for every police and crime commissioner, and also includes a 0.9% national indicator for the increase in the council tax base. We've actually gone up by 1.22%, so it is actually slightly higher. So this is just a pictorial. It is the table, it's in your report, so you will have seen this one, just indicating the split of the grant and the precept and how that correlates down to the 4.5%. This is the table just covering the Devon and Cornwall provision so that you can see the split between the two. So I won't dwell on it. It is in your papers for your information. So when we look at budget assumptions of what we've got in the MTFS, the nationally agreed pay award, we have 3% in for 26-27 and 2.5% in for future years. This is in line with most forces nationally, so that we are not an outlier of what we've got in built into our MTFS report. Just so that you're aware, 1% on our pay award is £4.2 million for us. So for next year, if it is 1% higher than we've predicted, we do have the pay award. It doesn't start until the 1st of September, however, so that means £2.45 million additional for every percent above what we've put into the MTFS. What we've also got in the pay award for last year that we've had to build in was last year we had in 2.8% along with many other forces, and the pay award came at 4.2%. The Home Office did give us additional funding for 25-26 for the 7 months, but they have not repeated it, so it's a one-off increase. So we do have a legacy increase within our MTFS of 1.4% that has to be built into our MTFS. That's 5.8 million for Devon and Cornwall. And as you know, we don't get any capital funding grant, and we have got the additional 50 million for neighbourhood policing grant, which is 1.2 million for Devon and Cornwall. That does come with a target of an additional 41 officers to go into neighbourhood. But we don't have the grant criteria for it yet, so we don't know exactly the details on all of that. So for Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, the planning assumptions, we have a net revenue budget of 461.5 million. That's up 28.6 million from last year. Specific ring fence grant is down by 7.1, mainly because we have got grant that has been shifted from specific into the main for the police officer uplift programme that covered the 20,000 officers that we had 2 or 3 years ago now. We've got the increase. We do know things come out of the woodwork and have hit us, things like rack, concrete, etc. So we do have to move about our capital programme sometimes dynamically during the year, as you all would have the same problems. Pay and inflation is 23 million. Most of this is to do with pay. We are 87% staffing costs, so therefore that is the biggest gearing that we have with any inflationary increases. And most of that for pay, we've got about 20 million built in. There's not very much else apart from that most of that is to do with inflation, which we only give on particular contracts. It's not just a blanket. So, as I said, police officers are 87%, police staffing is 87% of our budget, and this relates to 59% officers and 28% police staff, so it is quite heavily police officers. We have got a proposal in for £15, 5.2% on a band D, and as I said, we will have new workforce targets to achieve. We know the second year of the neighbourhood policing grant will be 41 to go into neighbourhood. We don't know what the base is for the first year. We over-recruited above our police funding formula numbers that we would require, so we will be talking to the Home Office, and they've not indicated what that base will be for the first year. We have savings of 9.9 million in there. So we've got savings that we've already achieved of around about 2 million. The OPCC has already delivered just under £1 million, and we have £5 million that we will be achieving through priority-based budgeting. I think we've discussed this at the meeting before, but just in case you're not familiar with what priority-based budgeting is, it looks at productivity savings, which can be non-cashable. It looks at demand, and then it looks at whether the service level that we have is appropriate for the priority of that budget. And we've already undergone phase 1, which was with our Alliance colleagues in Dorset, and we are literally just due to start in the next couple of weeks phase 2, which will be based on Devon and Cornwall functions only. And we have an additional gap of 3.1 million now based on the provisional and now the final settlement, which we will be putting plans in place to achieve. So, what does 461.5 million buy you? So I won't go through every single item on these slides, but it is a 24/7, 365-day service, 3,610 police officers, 199 PCSAs, which is up because of neighbourhood policing. We've got 17 tri-service officers and 9 other collaborative posts, which is your community responders, etc. We've got 2,250 staffing and 31 OPCC staff. We have 58 police dogs. I did put in brackets, we've got 7 puppies, but they're not operational yet, so they will be added to the cohort when they're ready. There's also a list here of all of the things that we manage and maintain. So you've got your vehicles, both marked and unmarked, your buildings, custody centres. You can read it, I won't go through it in detail, but it is all there. One thing that did make me stop was the number of police radios, because I couldn't work out why there was more than police officers, but of course we've got radios in cars, we've got radios in offices, and we've got radios that we've given to some victims as well. So there's quite a lot of police radios that we've got. So financial risks and resilience. I will dwell on this one a little bit because this is, in my view, one of the most important elements of the MTFS, and going forward for at least the next 2 years and into the new structure of policing, it's really important that, in my view, we make sure Devon and Cornwall is financially resilient going into that new structure. So it's really important during periods of economic volatility. And over the last 6 years, we have seen Section 114 notices, and even recently one in policing. It wasn't a Section 114 plain, it was a Section 114A, and that's now been dealt with, and you will have seen that in the press recently. So just going on to this, the building blocks for financial resilience, in my view, are fairly simple. Some of you who've been on this panel will have heard me say this before, but for the new members, we make sure we can afford what we buy. We always look at the ongoing liability from a decision. We don't choose reserves for recurring expenditure, and we always consider risk and ensure our assumptions are realistic. There are many other blocks, but in my view, those are the key ones for making sure that we are resilient. The mitigations of that risk would be a balanced medium-term financial position, which we have in front of us. Assurances of no cliff edges. We're not using one-off money for ongoing expenditure with no exit strategy. Realistic assumptions. We have been careful to be prudent with our assumptions, and we have used data from the Office of the Budget Responsibility, and we have also triangulated that nationally to make sure we're not an outlier. General reserves to weather the storm. Sorry, I shouldn't say that today, should I, with the weather we've been having, so excuse the pun. Our general reserves is approximately 3.6% of our net revenue budget, and that's well within our assessment of between 3 and 5% of our reserve strategy, which has been updated and is on our website. And good, transparent decision making, and we do publish decisions that we make outside of anything that's before you today. Resilience is also achieved through good governance and processes, and there are a number of levels of protection in both external and internal audit, along with independent audit committee. There are also other inspection regimes, HMI, CFOS, which we are very familiar with in the last few years, and we have a code of corporate governance which lays out the way in which a business should run. That has just recently been updated and put onto our website. And as I said, we have a treasury management strategy, a capital strategy, and a reserve strategy. And you will have all of these as well. They are reviewed annually and they are published on our website. All of which are geared towards ensuring risk is minimised and resilience is maximised. There's also a value for money judgment on our final accounts, of which I am very proud because we have now achieved a good assessment on our value for money. And we have a track record of delivering savings. So inflation has significantly reduced since our peak many years ago in October 2022. November was 3.2, but a very slight increase for December at 3.4. But it is all still above the government guideline of 2%. The bank base rate is now 3.75. There's a meeting of the MPC next week. And we will hope to see the rates drop over the next year further. It's particularly relevant for our borrowing purposes, but also for us, we invest a lot of money as well. So there is a downside to every upside when we look at these particular items. We are forecasting it for it to go down with our investment interest in the MTFS that you've got before you. As you're aware, the budgets are particularly sensitive to pay awards, and I have already outlined that at the moment. The funding formula impact we've heard in the reform is probably not going to be done now until after police reform is outlined. The achievement of the workforce targets and any other specific grants we have that have got conditions on there. So we're very careful about additional grants. And that's why for the new grant that we've had come in for the Knife Crime Concentration Fund, we are assuming that that will come with additional expenditure. So we are not assuming that that will just be subsumed within the MTFS. So we don't have a multi-year settlement, which we were hoping for when the CSR came in the summer. And that doesn't help with long-term planning. Second homes income for Devon and Cornwall, you all know that we're an outlier for the number of second homes. And in 25-26, we assumed that we would probably go down slightly after our first year in the peak. And this was the data that was shown in the Welsh data when they brought theirs in originally. And across Devon and Cornwall as a whole, we have not moved significantly on the numbers of second homes. And in fact, we put in a 0% tax base rise in case that happened, and we have got a tax base rise of 1.22%. We also put in a 0 for our surplus, which I know many others did, and we now have ended up with a surplus of 1.8 million, with most of our collecting authorities actually achieving a surplus. Firearms licences, we have talked about previously, and firearms licences, we are covering 43% of our costs outside of police officers. And therefore, in order for us to be able to achieve a full cost recovery, we would need to at least double all of the charges. And there are a number of charges under that fees and charges regime. So that's the resilience element of it. And I did dwell on that one purposefully because it is a really important part of the MTFS going forward. So just looking at council tax, I've covered some of this, so I won't dwell on the issues of the council tax base increase and the net surplus, but it is higher than we were expecting this time last year. Chargeable dwellings, we are looking at a total of 800 and just shy of 850,000 across Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. 82% of our chargeable dwellings are A to D, 66% are A to C. So you can see quite significantly in the pictorial vision you've got before you, exactly the highest levels of our bandings, B obviously being significantly higher than most. This is all based on the CTV data that was returned in September 2025. For second homes, for council tax data, we have chargeable dwellings of 30,791 across all of our area. A to C chargeable dwellings is 54%, D and above 46%. So it is quite different to our chargeable dwellings. And as you can see, A is the biggest band of second homes. Interestingly enough, the highest level of H has slightly gone up this year for second homes. Just so that you're aware, the highest proportions of band D equivalents for second homes is the Isles of Scilly, South Hams, Cornwall and North Devon. Those are our biggest areas of second homes. So for council tax, we are in the middle, virtually in the middle of where we're looking for band Ds. This is based on assuming that all PCCs go to their maximum. And of course, we don't know that yet. But it doesn't include all of those that have been given potential additional flexibility on top of their band D, because we don't know that yet. They were told on Wednesday, some of them haven't gone to panel yet, and papers have probably only just been published for some of their panels. So it's not known yet what that would be. This is one of the things that I will probably restate for you once we know how that's gone. So that's our council tax. And our council tax proportion, again, we're in the middle. You'll have all of this data on these slides. So we're in the middle. I have coloured it slightly differently so you can see where we are on this one. We are 43% council tax and 58% grant. That's up. The council tax element is up 1% on last year on where we are. But of course, I've got all this data for you if you want it. So management reserves is another mitigation for resilience. So we have the reserves strategy. It sets out our risks. We do review those risks in the strategy every year. And for this year, one of the key elements of the risk assessment that I've looked at is around major operations and the cost of those. So within the assessment of whether we've got adequate reserves, I've increased the level that we may need for major operations going forward. It seems to be increasing year on year with those sorts of things that are falling onto the force to undertake. The review of the Independent Audit Committee, they look at our reserve strategies and the Commissioner then approves them once it's gone through that governance process. And the general balance is set in line with best practice 3 to 5%. The mitigations, we do have special grant with the Home Office. It's gone down and a lot of it is already spent, so it's hard to get special grant, but it is there in cases of significant emergency. But it is only after you've already spent 1% of your net revenue budget, so we wouldn't get anything above 4.6 million. There's other forms of capital financing, and we do prudent assumptions, and we have a strategy to maintain our general balances. So as the NRE goes up, what we put into reserves goes up. Forecast use and reduction in reserves, you can see that the forecast use of reserves is coming down. This is in line with what we expected to do and in line with government direction. But you can see in that the yellow box is the general balances, and they are maintained at the level that we need them to be retained at, which is just shy of 4%, sort of in the middle of where we are. You've got this table in your report. That is just where the band D equivalent will sit, what that means, and what that means for each banding. But it's already in your report. So my final slide is a repeat of one you've seen earlier with an extra box at the bottom, which is about a robust and sustainable budget over the MTFS. So as the Section 151 officer for the Police and Crime Commissioner, I must be assured that this is a robust and sustainable budget. This has been a difficult year due to the limited and late data provided. We have a savings target of 9.9 million, with 3.1 million yet to be identified, which does increase our risk profile. However, for an organisation of nearly £500 million who is undertaking a further phase of priority-based budgeting and have a track record of delivering our savings, this level of risk is reasonable. Therefore, I can confirm that I am assured on the robustness and sustainability of the medium-term financial strategy before you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. And I think if I can just clarify, on one of Nikki's slides, there was a quote as yet unknown impact of policing, white paper on the policing reform. So hopefully that will settle some members of the conversation that we started the meeting with. But I would like to hand over to the Chief Constable if you would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to address you and panel members. I want to update you on the improvement work that I've been leading in the force over the previous year, how we continue to deliver against the Commissioner's Police and Crime Plan, how we are strengthening the force to sustain improvements and delivery going forward whilst preparing for significant police reform, as already spoken about, outlined in the government's white paper published on Monday. In December 2024, I was asked to step out of retirement, having previously been a Chief Constable in Dorset, to provide the Commissioner and the force with what was much needed leadership stability. At that time, both the Chief Constable and the Deputy Chief Constable were suspended from duty, and the force was entering its third year engaged by the HMIC FRS in enhanced monitoring. The previous Chief Constable took retirement last year, and I'm pleased that the Deputy Chief Constable, Jim Colwell, has now returned to full duties and has my full confidence and is getting on with and doing an outstanding job. I've agreed to remain in post for another year to embed and sustain the stability that I hope I can demonstrate that we've achieved over the last year. This year has proved to be exceptional in terms of our policing challenges. Operation Honeyfall and Hydrox, just two major crimes in Cornwall this year, are good examples of how our resilience has been tested around major crime, and that called for us to call for mutual aid, help from other forces nationally. We had detectives here helping us with those inquiries from Northumbria and Durham, for example. Global issues such as the events that we see unfolding in Gaza and ongoing pressures around our immigration and asylum system has led to deep divisions in communities and a higher than usual level of public order and protest policing. Following 3 hard years of work and some significant improvements to performance, with the support of both the Commissioner and officers from HMIC FRS, the force was discharged, I'm glad to say, in July of last year from the enhanced monitoring stage. 2 of the causes of concern were discharged with significant, notable and sustainable improvements in our 101, 999 and contact services, and also to the approach that we take to sexual and dangerous offenders. The 2 remaining causes of concern surround investigation standards and crime data integrity, and we continue to receive, and I place an intensive forensic leadership oversight on those areas requiring further improvement. Delivery is being delivered against improvement plans, and uplifts in performance, particularly around outcomes for victims, continue to improve, and our crime recording is now consistently at the mid 90%. The HMIC FRS Peel inspection for 25-26 has just completed its final field work, and we expect to receive formal feedback and a new baseline on our performance in March of 2026. Informal feedback has been very encouraging. Looking forward from a period of engagement, scrutiny and monitoring, I've set out a strategic and longer term plan for the force, which will enable us to navigate the force through the next few years and on into the major police reform that is outlined in the white paper. This includes proposals around force structures and policing governance. I've identified 4 strategic priorities and a 4P plan which sets to create the conditions for successfully delivering not only the policing crime plan, but setting a strategic roadmap for the force to be sustainable in the long term. Those 4 Ps are public service, performance, planning and people. Around public service, I want to strengthen our commitment and promote a better culture of public service through the delivery of our force mission, which is to deliver community policing with competence, compassion and common sense. I met just about all of the workforce last year in road shows and visibility sessions, and I'll be holding further leadership events this year to ensure that my messages are heard directly by all staff. On performance, whilst out of special measures, the force performance still needs to improve. And with a laser-like focus being applied by me and other members of the executive, the Deputy Chief Constable provides his strategic leadership through his Performance Management Board. And I've overseen and agreed and signed off new performance management frameworks this year to strengthen that view. Sustained improvements have been made on file quality, moving from probably the lowest level of performance in the country to a top 10 performer. We've also improved investigation standards, outcomes for victims, call management, retail crime, offender management, antisocial behaviour, and there's been a very, very strong focus around violence against women, particularly around stalking, bearing in mind that this is just about a year anniversary since we lost Claire Chick in this city. In terms of planning, the force has now developed a strategic plan which not only responds to the priorities set out in the policing crime plan published by the Commissioner, but also provides a strategic roadmap for the force going forward, allowing us to navigate the ever-changing societal challenges that we face around workforce skills requirement, police reform, artificial intelligence, tech and cyber. As the Treasurer has outlined, we've used priority-based budgeting this year to forensically examine the budget that we share with our partners in Dorset and bring about £5 million worth of savings from a back office for all of our enabling and back office functions, which were built very lean during periods of austerity. And we rolled out the phase 2 of that in the next few weeks to bring that same focus over the remaining aspects of the Devon and Cornwall police budget, which will enable me to shift, to make savings and efficiencies, but importantly to shift resources to new and emerging threats. In terms of our people, our workforce plan is very clear to continue to recruit and retain and train the record numbers of people that we have in the organisation at the moment. I rehearsed with you at the last panel Operation Resolve, which is a force operation to return officers back to the front line, ensuring that those that we recruit are placed where they are most needed and are most sensitive, where the public most value them, and that is in response and neighbourhoods. I've given you my commitment and resolve to restore response and neighbourhood policing to its establishment and then protect it by the end of the financial year. And I'm glad to say that we've already, I follow a weekly list of every officer with their numbers and who they are and where they've gone, and we've sent 90 officers back to frontline policing roles since September, with a further 50 planned this year. In addition to that, as you know, I've conducted a full rank review, forming very early on, forming the review that we had room to reduce a top-heavy structure and return a further 60 constables to the front line. I've written to the Commissioner a letter which has been published and you've had a chance to see, which sets out my operational budget requirement for 2026 and 27 and how I intend to deliver the sort of just shy of £10 million of savings in year, with an extra, obviously an extra pressure now of 3.1 million. I'm very confident we can do that. Our track record shows that we do deliver when we say we're going to make savings and efficiencies, and we're working really hard now to identify plans to find that additional 3.1 million. But of course that 3.1 million pound extra pressure is on the basis of an assumption of a £15 council tax precept increase, which I've asked the Commissioner to bring as a proposal today. I don't do that lightly, and like the Commissioner, I understand the strain that households are under as we continue to endure a cost of living crisis. Unusually, I've not provided the possibility for significant investment with additional taxation over the next financial year, and that's set against the challenging settlement as outlined by the Treasurer. But it will allow me to protect the resources that we currently enjoy, and service improvements and performance improvements will be delivered, but that will be delivered through me continuing a forensic focus on performance and service delivery. Operation Resolve is the mechanism for me to realign existing resources within the broadly balanced budget and create the necessary capacity to deal with new and emerging threats as they come forward. And I'll touch very briefly on police reform. Most of you would have had a chance, I'm sure, to see the white paper, which looks at introducing a new national police service, an independent review on the number of police forces and the size of police forces, a workforce strategy, a nationally set of well-being standards, a set of performance standards, new guarantees and contact channels and performance expectations, an implementation of an artificial intelligence centre, a focus on prevention, a review of the funding formula, of further reforms around vetting and misconduct, and of course an overhaul of police governance. I broadly welcome the reforms, many of which have been pressed for by chief constables over many years. The current policing structure was designed in the 1960s, before we had internet and mobile phone, and the current model of 43 police forces across the country has not enabled sufficient change at the pace we need to keep track with global pressures and threats. I am an advocate, and I'm on record as being an advocate of fewer, larger police forces, but I welcome and will welcome the independent review to help steer us on what an optimum size for a police force is. I've led many strategic programmes of change, both in force in the South West and nationally. The Strategic Alliance with Dorset, the South West Forensics Collaboration, major crime collaborations between Wiltshire and Avon and Somerset Police, and a national programme to deliver a forensic capability network. And I have to say they were extraordinarily difficult programmes to deliver within our current governance and framework. I particularly welcome the review of funding, as Devon and Cornwall Police receive less funding per capita than many large city forces, and consequently we rely disproportionately on council tax precept to maintain the services that the public here enjoy. And I'm concerned around two things. I'm cautiously concerned around two things in the reform. The first, that a national police service and force restructures, I'm concerned they may suck resources away from Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. And it's my duty and responsibility to work with the Commissioner, with the panel, and with any new governance arrangements that we have in future years to ensure that we anchor resources here and where we can bolster local policing delivery, which is so valued by the public. My second concern is around the change of governance. The public deserve and should demand good local accountability from their police. I've worked with a number of different commissioners over the year, 4 in total. I've sat in front of many policing crime panels over 12 years across 2 police forces, across the region and in the National Forum. And I can say that I believe very strongly, actually, that I've been robustly and intrusively held to account for my delivery as a Chief Constable. New arrangements with closer links to local government, of course, are capable of providing good governance, but detail at the moment is quite lacking. And I worry that if we scale up and we're forced into a large-scale merger, then the say of the public might be diluted. So I have some concerns there. But I will work tirelessly to protect the levels of policing that we currently enjoy in Devon and Cornwall. And I'm happy to assist the Commissioner and the panel with any questions.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm quite happy to open for questions. So your questions would be to the Commissioner at first. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. It's one for you, Commissioner. I suppose I'm going to do, if you'll pardon the pun, a good cop, bad cop routine. So I'm going to start with the good cop routine. I mean, you are in a position where you are forced to ask for the full amount. I can see that. What Mrs. Allen has said in terms of, the fact that it's robust and sustainable, but I'm confident to accept that opinion. What I would say is that in the report, at 4.5, there's reference to the Chief Constable, and the specific words are that the letter at Appendix 2 is clear that a precept increase of £15 is the required threshold. Well, surely, actually, when you read the letter, what it actually says is it's not enough. And I think really, unless you're prepared to read the appendix and the Chief's excellent letter, then you're not going to necessarily pick that up. And it sounds like we are content, and I'm really concerned that we don't appear to be content, because I can't imagine many of the people in this room are content, frankly, at having once again to ask the public for the maximum council tax, as we have to as council leaders across Devon and Cornwall, because that's the way the government have chosen to fund this. So I really think not only should we make it clear that the Chief Constable is not is not clear, as you like, that a precepted increase is required. Actually, more. If we don't want to have 3.1 million of unfunded savings, we actually would have needed more, quite frankly. And this arbitrary £15 hasn't helped you, because we haven't had a decent funding settlement in this region, across the police, across local government in general, which is unfortunate, and coastal rural communities appear to have suffered. So on that, you have my full support. Turning bad cop very briefly, just to speak in support of Councillor Pember, the statistics are really important. You were elected last year with actually what worked out 10% of Devon and Cornwall voted for you. You can only be voted by the people who vote for you, and 10% voted for you. I'm a council leader. In the area where people voted for me, 20% of people voted for me. So democratically, the deficit is an interesting argument. But moreover, a district council or a county council leader, council leaders, the upper tiers, they represent everybody in their areas, because they are only leaders because of their council colleagues. So you have to add all the votes together. It's not just... So I'm just speaking to support what Councillor Benworthy said. You aren't comparing apples with apples. So I don't like the fact that your role is going to disappear any more than you do. I've told you that. But it is, we have to work together on how it's going to work. Today, if it was Councillor Brazil, the Liberal Democrat leader of the county, if it was Councillor Evans, the Labour leader of Plymouth, and if it was Councillor Thomas, the Conservative leader of Torbay, as the three upper tier authority leaders, you could argue that there is absolutely a democratic responsibility, because if any of those three leaders misbehave, their colleagues will be pretty quick to kick them out, and if they don't, their electorate will. So, I think we need to work together with you on what comes next. But on today, you have my support.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And I think, one of the reasons we didn't apply for more or to expand the council tax is, one, it's largely for forces that are financially really in dire straits. So it's for those with major millions, multi-million pounds of a funding gap. So we had to suck that one up. We know we've got to find the 3.1 million, and it is completely unfunded. And we all know what that generally and usually means. It does mean reduction in staffing numbers. The one thing that the government is going to be doing in this new financial year, we're waiting fully for the details to come through, but they will remove the overall, we believe, the overall a bit need to keep your police numbers at the levels it was agreed at with the police uplift. So we're likely, and the easiest way, I can promise you this with Chief Constables, and it's not, I haven't with James yet, but I can promise you with Chief Constables, the easiest way to balance your budget is not to recruit police officers. because they retire and move, and we're constantly on a churn of recruiting police officers every year. Your easiest way to balance it in here is to not recruit those police officers. I've fought against that in the past with chief constables, and I will, while I'm still here, I will fight to keep us at our record number of police officers that we've got. But I don't know what next year's settlement might bring and where we might be in police reform. So, but I will do my best and utmost to do that. But yeah, one of the reasons we didn't put an application in for that is A, we're not in as bad a situation as others, and B, to take more. It's been really difficult, and I've had this conversation with some members before. I make the decision about the council tax proposal to bring to you. It's me personally that takes the brunt of it. I'm the one that has to face people for the accountability of it. It's not shared responsibility amongst a group of councillors, it's me. So you can feel I get very personal about the fact that I've taken a lot of money out of people's pockets since I've been here, and I'm continuing to today. So that's why I'm feeling a little bit personally slighted around it, because I do feel awful that we have to go to the maximum at this point. I haven't taken the maximum every year in front of you every year, so I don't always take the full either.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councillor German.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As someone who's enjoyed over 50% of the vote on an over 50% turnout for the last 20 years, I'm hoping you might allow me 2 questions. I think the first one might be best placed to the Treasurer, but you'll decide. Just thank you very much for your report and for the commentary on second homes income. Has the second homes income been treated as base within the budget or supplementary? Thank you. And the Chief Constable in his presentation, and indeed the Police and Crime Commissioner, talked about the number of officers. So my question on that is, of the 37 transferee officers that have joined Devon and Cornwall Police Force, how many have left? Thank you.
Thank you. So if I cover the second homes element, yes, it is in our base. So we have included in our base. Obviously, as you know, for 26-27, it is for the collecting authorities and you as a whole to define the number of council tax bandees for the following year for 26-27. We've been quite prudent going forward into 27-28 and onwards with a council tax base increase of 1% and also a surplus, I think, of £1 million in there, which we do tend to go higher on the basis that in other areas, as I said in Wales, it did go down slightly after a year or so. So we're just trying to be a little bit prudent so that we don't overdo our income in years going forward. But yes, we have put it into our base.
Councillor German, my colleague is going to try and find you a forensic number. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can say is that by the end of the financial, we've accelerated and changed the balance between new recruits and student officers and transferees, because generally speaking, transferees don't leave. They've already decided they're going to settle in policing as a career. We do have relatively high attrition, 10% or so, of student officers that leave. For lots of good, honourable reasons, sometimes because we ask them to leave. The number at the time of publishing was 37. By the end of the financial year, it would be more than 90 transferees, and that's how I'm upholding my part of the bargain with the Commissioner to maintain police officer numbers, which we all desire because we all want to see police officers on our front line. And if I can get the forensic number for you before the end of the session, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ewing.
Well, it's good that I came next because it's quite similar questions to Councillor German. Of the 121 frontline officers, do we lose a third of them as potential retirees? And are the potential retirees across the board or in specialisms that could leave us vulnerable? And then the next bit, with staffing due to retirements, bring down overall costs because we will have newer, less experienced staff who aren't at the top of pay grades yet. And the other one is, of transferees, how many of them end up retiring? Because I know when I've advertised for head teachers before, you get all of them that want to come here to retire, and you're losing transferees, etc., quite quickly to retirement because they've chosen to retire here. Thank you.
So you're absolutely right. A student officer salary band is coming on for £20,000 a year, less than an officer that has 7 to 10 years of service. So our previous budget modelling, was making an assumption that most of our new recruits would be student officers. I've changed that matrix on the grounds that the attrition rate was becoming high. We were relatively saturated with junior and less experienced officers. And I've asked the Treasurer and my finance officer to adjust our base to allow transferees to come in. They are more expensive, but they hit the ground on day one. We don't have to train them to the same level. They come. We tend not to take people that are waiting to retire. The equality laws don't allow us to place any age restrictions on, but generally speaking, people are coming early and mid-service, and that's a good thing for us. So they do. The other thing about transferees is they change up our culture, bringing people in from other areas. It brings new people in. It improves our diversity in every way, particularly our cognitive diversity, to bring people in with different perspectives. Many of them, of course, are people that used to live here, grew up here, moved away to other police forces and want to come back and finish their careers here. Does that help?
Could I just ask about, with the retirees, about being in specialisms, that could it leave us vulnerable?
It kind of cuts across the whole spectrum. We have lost lots of detectives over recent years. We've had to work really hard to recruit and retain detectives. Again, I've asked, in last year's budget, you would have seen, and in this year's budget, I've asked for baseline funding to increase police staff investigators to replace detectives, because we can't recruit and train them fast enough. But it does cut all the way across policing. It's not disproportionately affecting one area or the other. The way I balance that is through things like Operation Resolve, by having a really, really good understanding of workforce data and pushing and forcing people to move back to frontline roles, to make sure that we don't hold the gaps that any organisation carries in the wrong place.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lodge, next, please.
Thank you, Chair. There's been a lot of talk about resilience this morning. I see that the revenue reserves are sort of within tolerance now, and broadly for the life of the OPCC. But by 2030, revenue reserves reduced to, by my figures, about 1% of revenue expenditure. That would, I presume, attract SIPFA or auditor scrutiny. That doesn't feel resilient to me. How can you justify a reduction like that, and is it of concern?
Thank you. So when we look at the slide that I did put up on the presentation, the slide that we've got, I'm quite happy to go back to it if you want to have a look at it. It's that one. So the revenue reserves are planned to go down, and they are there held for specific purposes in order to support things like capital funding, etc. So when we come to 2030, we do look like we are going to be down to quite a minimal level. And at the moment, we've deferred borrowing because we can use our internal reserves to cover that. SIPFA won't come in on our revenue reserves. They would come in if our general balances slipped below what we say we're going to do in our reserve strategy, which is between 3 and 5. And that's the yellow box, and that stays between the 3 and 5. Linked to the reserve strategy, we also have a capital strategy. And our capital strategy indicates that we will not use capital receipts or even allocate them until they've been realised. And we do know that in the next couple of years, we should be receiving some quite significant capital receipts on some sale of a building that's been left empty for a while and has just gained planning through Exeter. So we are expecting to get that capital receipt probably next year, but we don't include that in any of our figures until we've had it. I think we had our fingers burnt a few years ago by doing that, and we've changed our policy significantly. So until we receive the money, we don't allocate it anywhere now. So that's how we will be doing that in the foreseeable future. But it is the general balances that's the key one, not necessarily the revenue. But in my view, that because the revenue balances will be dropping, it is even more important for us to keep our general balances at a good level, because that's where a rainy day money would need to come from.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I've just got a question about the collection of section 106 and seal, which is mentioned in point 6.33 on page 22, because it says it's now actively being pursued with local planning authorities. I can't see anything in the budget information that we've got to show where anything from that area has already come in. So I suppose my question is, I'm reading that as if it's never been pursued and never been collected. If it has, where is it in the budget? How can we see it, please? And why hasn't that been pursued, I suppose, in the past?
So the section 106 seal money is actively pursued whenever there's a planning application that comes in. But we know that with planning applications, they take a number of years to come to fruition. We have got some section 106 money through Cornwall for the Truro development that is coming in. But that could be a number of years before that is materialised. So we have got it, but again, until it's realised, we wouldn't include it in any of our figures. And I think the estimate for the Truro development is probably into the 2030s, but we have secured some through that. We did, at the end of the last government, there was a planning paper that went through that was looking to put emergency services, and I'm not just talking police there, emergency services on the list of infrastructures needed for significant developments, and that never came to, that never got baked in. I don't think it got baked into legislation in the end, but it was there as the final reading. So we are still pursuing that, and we do pursue every major planning application that comes through.
Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, first of all. I'm aware, obviously, there were a briefing for members, which was a private briefing, not a public briefing, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to make that. Mrs. Allen, you presented today a whole load of slide decks which gives additional information and presents it in different forms. That was not available in advance of the meeting for us or the public. I think it would be helpful on something like the budget if there is a slide deck that actually helps everyone understand and contextualise it, that is published as part of the papers, not presented to us, because it leaves us having to try and catch up and so on the day, and also doesn't give full accountability to the public to look at something and say, I'm concerned about this, can you raise it? So if that's able to be done in future, that would be welcome.
Councillor Penberthy, can I just interrupt you there? I think the Treasurer did make it quite clear that you were very late in receiving it, so hence why it didn't come out. But certainly take your point. It's very difficult to go through papers at a meeting.
The substantive thing I want to pick up on, I looked for something that I expected, because a couple of meetings ago, Commissioner, you told me that the budget meeting was when stuff on equalities impacts was published, and it's not here. But I'm picking up on that because the Chief Constable talked about issues of community tensions and community cohesion that were important. A couple of meetings ago, I also raised issues about public sector equalities duties. So not only have we not got an equalities impact assessment, I have now gone back and checked the websites that I raised a couple of meetings ago in here. Neither your website nor the Force website has been updated since that meeting. Neither has a current public sector equality duty that I can find. Neither has a current action plan, and actually your equalities stuff on your website is still dated 2014, as far as I can see. So I've not been able to find it when I've been searching. I think the public sector equalities duty is a legal requirement for both you and the force. And this is looking at the moment with difficulty to find and no equalities impact assessment, that this doesn't matter. So I would like, and this is a recommendation, if I may, Chair, that we have an equalities impact assessment on the budget provided to the panel before the budget actually takes into effect, so before the end of this financial year. I think that's important because amongst diverse communities, there is a lot of concern that moving a diverse communities team into it's everyone's business will mean it's no one's business, and they are looking to see reassurance. And I've looked today and double-checked today, and I couldn't easily find anything. You might have put it there, I can't find it, and if I can't find it, then other people won't be able to find things, and these are really important. So I just wanted to raise as a matter of concern that no equalities impact assessment on a budget, I don't think is good enough. And I think we do need to be doing that. And we can do it. I'm currently reviewing the equalities impact assessment on the Plymouth City Council budget before the budget meetings. And so it is possible to do them. I think that you should be doing it, and we do need to look at the impact on communities.
Thank you, Chairman. You raised some really important points there, Councillor Penberthy. Just so you know, I'm looking to Chief Exec because I know she told me that the stuff's been put on the website, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably too difficult to find or the search isn't working. So
it is there. There's not an equality. So, Councillor, we've specifically gone back and put a drop-down menu, which I can show you where it is later on. In terms of the specific equality impact assessment on the budget, for this particular meeting, we are setting the precept. The determination of the budget is actually, and the equality impact assessment of how it will be delivered is a matter for the Chief Constable in operational terms. But we can do an equality impact assessment on the precept if that's what this panel is recommending.
Chair, just to add, the only thing I'm a bit anxious about is we're being abolished. My staff team may not be in existence because they may leave. I don't really want to do extra work to bring to this panel before we go, but I'm willing to go and have a look at it. But what I'm saying is if my staff leave because of the fact that we're being abolished and we are at threat that could happen, our statutory duties will actually have to be prioritised over anything else. So I just want to let you be aware of that, but we'll certainly take that away and see what we can bring for the precept to you at the next Police and Crime Panel budget meeting.
Councillor Penberthy, can you be very
just quickly, your statutory duties extend beyond policing. The public sector equalities duty is a statutory duty, including an annual report, which should be published before the end of the financial year. So I look forward to seeing your public sector equalities duty action report and future plans before the end of the financial year. Please could you circulate them to all committee members rather than just having to chase them down?
Okay, moving on. Just before I move on, I've got 4 more people to speak, and then I'm going to close this debate because we are now running over 30 minutes late. Okay, so Councillor Hackett, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I always get told to speed things along. I've got one observation and one question. The observation is we're going to have this white paper reform at the appropriate time. I would welcome meeting the Chief Constable as well as the Police and Crime Commissioner, because there were 2 phrases that I picked up: anchor resources here and local accountability. So that is something that concerns us in Northern Devon. My specific question is going to be for Nikki Allen here. With an organisation with 80% of its staff costs, pensions are vital. Now, I want to make sure that we have a robust position for pension resources, because with the increasing liabilities, I don't want a shortfall going over the horizon that we haven't looked at here. You know, speaking as a chair of audit and governance, that's something that is very clearly on the agenda for us. So, do we have a resilient pension pot? Thank you.
Thank you. So actually this year we had a triennial re-evaluation of the local government pension scheme, and I think a lot of people in here will be in the same pension scheme as us, which is Peninsular Pensions for our police staff. And this year, for the first time probably that I've ever known, the pensions contribution, the employer pension contributions, has gone down. And that's now set in stone for 3 years. So that will be all the way through until a new governance arrangements comes in. And I think a lot of others, and I did check this across the whole country to make sure that this wasn't just something relevant to Devon and Cornwall, or to Devon, and it's not. Across the country, a lot of pension schemes have seen their employer contributions go down. And that has been built into this budget. It's about 3 million. It's offset some of the issues that we were facing. So that has been built in. With regard to police officer pensions, that's a separate indication, because police staff, the contribution rate went down from 18.9 to 16%. It's quite a lot of money when we've got a significant amount of police staff. For police officers, it's 35%, the employer contribution. So employing a police officer against a police staff member is a lot more expensive. The police officer pension is a non-funded pension, and when it goes up and down, we get additional grant from the Home Office to cover that. One of our specific grants is actually £10 million, which has bridged the gap between differences in the uplift in the employer contribution rate. So we do take quite a robust look at our pensions, because obviously it's related to pay, which is 87% of our budget. So anything to do with pay, as the Chief Constable said, is forensically looked at to ensure we've got it absolutely battened down. So yes, I think the short answer is yes.
Thank you for that very clear answer. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Hackett, for keeping your question quite direct. Gordon, please.
Thank you. Councillor Czapieski, Mid Devon. A question about partnerships. I noticed the reserves proportion of net revenue income expenditures goes down. The report mentions partnerships, and they are an important part of what this service offers. Can you very briefly explain why that value is going down? Are we putting more money in or taking more money out? Whatever. Thank you.
I'll speak on that one, because that's the Vision Zero reserve that we have through the partnership of the Road Safety Partnership. We host all the funding that comes through all of those speed awareness fines, and we host the partnership. So they are completely separate. And, you know, if that, at the moment, that is funding the replacement camera scheme and some of those elements which we've got, which is why it's going down. We may well be able to put more back into it, but it depends what happens year on year with the income stream. But largely that's managed through 4 cabinet members of the upper tier councils as well, so they can be part of the decisions around what that looks like as we move forward.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for the report, and from both of you, well, all 3 of you actually. I'm always a great believer in good news, and I don't see this budget as being good news, but I think you accept that we're obviously at the final sort of point where we're having to do the maximum. What are we going to do next year? We've got the maximum. Where do we go next year? So that's a sort of a general sort of observation, really. What I'm trying to pick out of the report, which I'm struggling with a little bit, is around when you're trying to sell this to residents, about what actually this means for our residents. How is this going to affect our residents on a day-to-day basis? And I was wondering, and perhaps I might have missed it, and I know you did a nice little video at the front, but why can we not sort of see what you're continuing to fund rather than necessarily what we're needing to do now, if you know what I mean? So I can go back to my residents and say, actually, okay, you've got to pay £15 extra, but we're still going to keep the street buses, which obviously doesn't affect me. But I'm trying to think of the positives, and I'm struggling to find them. So it's more of a question there, and I also have a second question actually for the Chief Constable, which was around transferees, which I know that we talked about a little bit. But with the white paper that's coming forward, how do you think, and this is only a supposition, how do you think that's actually going to affect transferees coming in? Do they think they're going to, you're suddenly going to have transferees dropping off because they're going to wait for the white paper to see how staff are going to be coming. So again, it's just an observation or not necessarily a question. I'm not going to commit myself, but I just worry that we're relying on transferees now, where actually the white paper might mean that we don't get any in 2028, 29. So that's sort of two questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. So some good news. Some good news, Councillor Chopak. We're not going to reduce officer numbers. 3,610 is what this budget will keep us going, and I can promise you they are reducing them. They will be reducing them around the country, and many didn't recruit for the uplift that they were offered. So we're keeping that. At the moment, police inquiry officers are definitely not closing, but I will not be opening any new. That is an actual sad fact, I'm afraid. And I know we were looking at Launceston, but at the moment I couldn't commit to opening any new. We want to secure the ones that we have already opened. So they will maintain being opened. You can get hold of the police much easier than you ever could before because of the performance that's been led by Council ACC Nikki Leaper and with James's additional scrutiny around that. So you can contact the police much easier. We've got a business crime reporting system, so the businesses can report crime easier and get help from the police quicker. So we've got some really positive things, and we'll be continuing the expansion of that system. In the strategic investment plan, there's some elements in there that you can see of things that we will still be continuing to fund as we go forward. Just wanted to we've got PCSOs increasing thanks to the neighbourhood policing grant from the government. That is one thing that has an additional element to things. So we've got more PCSOs coming. I think that the challenge for us, if you look in the strategic investment plan, is the hotspot policing isn't coming. But I'm going to give you some good news because I already part match fund some of that hotspot policing with street marshals. That money is still there to part match fund something around street marshals. So we will need to see how we can help support. And I know particularly Councillor Hackett is a fan of them. And I know that Cornwall in particular love their ASB case officers, their street marshals that are protecting people. So I will do what I can to see how we can continue some uniform presence that isn't just police officers on there. So there is some element of good news. We're still commissioning victim services. We've just released a sexual violence contract that's in collaboration with the local authorities and NHS England. So there's a better service for people who are victims of sexual violence, and delighted that we were able to work in collaboration for that, and that's over a number of years. So we've secured extra resources in that space. So there is quite a lot of good news. But I suppose the bit for us is because we're talking about the big numbers and how we're filling a gap, it gets quite dry and we lose the actual thread of what it is we're all about. Sorry about that, Councillor Chopak.
Come back on that. Just obviously, probably for Nikki really. Then obviously, where do we go when we've got the maximum this year? And we see those lines, but we know we're going to be seeing, if you like, cuts. I always hate the word cuts, but those are going to be coming, aren't they? Because we're going to be struggling if we've already got the maximum this year. That's what I'm struggling to understand a little bit. So perhaps we can forecast that a little bit better.
To be fair, Councillor Chopak, in the medium-term financial strategy, there'll be an expectations that we maintain, assuming the £15 over the next few years. So it would be that's to sustain us over the next few years. But in 6 months, by the summer, this is what we need to take note of. There is going to be an independent review on the number and structure of forces. This could happen quite quickly, the need to merge forces. I know some of the smaller ones are already saying they're open to it, but they may force us to do it. So we don't know where we'll be in the next sort of 12 months, and hopefully we'll have some clarity by the time we come back before you for the budget of the next year. But we've got planned for £15 each year in the medium-term financial strategy. Chief Constable, do you want to come in?
Some more good news. We took £2.5 million off of Andrew Tate this year for tax evasion, and we get 1.2 million of that into our coffers that we are resolved to spend on violence against women and girls this year, and already begun to allocate some of that fund. So that's a good bit of news. In terms of transferees, you're right. I think police structural reform might slow that flow into the force. Currently, I think the last time we advertised 300 people queued up to have a look at Devon and Cornwall. We are an attractive place to come and work. I'd like to think that's probably more to do with their geography than their boss, but people do want to come here. Lots of people want to return to their roots and come and work in these two brilliant counties and the Isles of Scilly. So that's something for us to watch.
Okay, I'm hoping Commissioner, I'm going to ask my question, and I hope you can carry on that good news that you've just been speaking about. So you've been speaking an awful lot today and in your papers about sexual violence, about victims, and how important it is that our police force and our partners support our victims of sexual violence. So I don't expect you to do every detail in this report, because I think, Nikki, you'd be there forever and a day. But I just would like some reassurance regarding our SOG here in Plymouth, that you will continue to support that and continue to support our victims of crime here in our city. And remembering Plymouth is one of the largest cities that you are dealing with within your budget.
Thank you, Chair. I know we've worked very closely together to do with sexual assault referral centres when it was going to be removed from Plymouth before, and was successful in identifying a location to keep it here. The main commissioner is NHS England, and as you know, they are being shut down as well. So between the other funder is Devon and Cornwall Police, or a police force in an area, and a commissioner. I fund the victim element, the force fund the forensic element, and NHS fund the clinical element. So you can see it's a tripartite contract. Part of the challenge as we move forward is that there is discussion in the white paper that the forensic capability or the forensics arrangements would be national under the National Police Service, which we wouldn't have control over. But at the moment and going forward in this immediate time, we've got money in the budget towards the Sexual Assault Referral Centre. I believe there's been some positive discussions with NHS England about how we retain a facility in Plymouth for victims. So I'm positive that there's a good resolution that's on the horizon.
I didn't know if the Chief Constable wanted to add on to that. It was about keeping the service that we've got, and I'm fully aware that we need accreditation, and at the moment, do you know what I mean, there's work going on with that, but, you know, I'll potentially...
I need to add that I'm in active dialogue with the Chief Executive here in Plymouth. The forensic accreditation is the issue for us, making sure that any sexual assault referral centre meets very high forensic standards. And that is where I think the difficulty lies. But the majority of the services that victims are currently receiving in Plymouth, I think we've got a way forward for the majority of those to continue to be delivered in Plymouth, with just the forensic bit perhaps being taken to a future, yet to be identified future strategic location which serves both Cornwall and Plymouth. And I think that's where the tension lies and ongoing discussions. But I have met with Tracy to talk this through.
And I think, sorry members, I'm not trying to bring casework to a panel, but I think it's really important that, you know, I put on record that forensic bit is the piece that I'm talking about for our victims here in our city, that they're not having to leave our city if need be. But I live in hope, and you know my feelings, and I have spread that wider. So thank you, and thank you very much for all your reports as well. Members, that's the questions finished. There are now 3 options open to the panel today, which are support of the precept without a qualification or comment, and I would need a majority vote for that. Support the precept and make recommendations, and again, I would need a majority vote. Or thirdly, veto the proposed precept because it is too high or too low. Members must be voting for the same reason. 2/3 majority is required, which this panel is 14. So I'm just trying to do numbers, and I think we still might just be there. So do I have any recommendation to go forward? Councillor Penberthy.
I'd like to add a recommendation about inequalities impact assessment. Not to veto, but to accept with the recommendation.
Happy to support that.
Do we have any additional recommendations from panel? No. Then I will need to see a show of hands. Oh, you've got to do it by electronic. Sorry.
Excuse me, do we not have any debate?
I'm going to let Jake, because we're going to do it differently, Mandy.
So if there are no further recommendations, then we can move to the vote. The members, sorry, through you, Chair. We've got a proposer, seconder. We can move to debate. There is a recommendation from Councillor Penberthy to request an equality impact assessment on the precept, and that to be provided to the panel before the precept's implementation.
Councillor Ewan?
I do. I am very happy to support this budget. It is a budget that we as councillors around the table, and particularly those of us as leaders, are having to go through within our own budgets, where fair funding, which we put in inverted commas in South Hams and West Devon, the fair word, because there's not a lot fair about it, we are all having to go to maximums. The government have said they now expect all authorities to go to the maximum because that's what your funding relies on. And actually, that's not fair to members of the public. You know, the government is forcing us to do something just so we can run basic services. And I personally think that's very morally wrong. We've always had a choice of whether we put up our precepts, whether we put them up to the full amount or whatever. But when you have no choice, that is a very difficult situation. On the good news bit for Councillor Chopak, as to how we can sell this to residents and everything, the bit that came into my head that wasn't mentioned by the Crime Commissioner was actually the night buses. As a parent, it must take a huge worry off your shoulders and potentially let you stay in bed and not have to go and collect said young person at whatever dreadful time of the morning it could be. So there's a quick answer we could always give, that actually that reassurance that that service is being provided is one to sell a budget on. Not the whole budget, I grant you, but thank you.
Okay, members, is there anybody else who would wish to speak? No? Then my recommendation would be that we go to the vote with the recommendation from Councillor Penberthy. Councillor Penberthy, do you want that reread out, or are you quite happy? You're quite happy. So we're going to take this vote electronically. I believe everybody is full aware of how to use their microphones in front of them. Okay, so happy to go to the vote, please. Okay, thank you. And I think you can see that that's 14 for and 1 abstained. So that has been passed, Commissioner. So moving on, I believe that is everything there, and we move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is the Commissioner's update report. Commissioner, I'm sure you're full aware that we are massively over timing, and I think it was worth having those conversations and questions. But if you could please keep it very briefly, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Chair, just to allow the Chief Constable to leave now from that agenda item, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Thank you for your support.
And thank you very much for your attendance today. It was very helpful.
I'll leave it open for questions on the update report as we are behind, but I would just like to thank councillors immensely for supporting the budget. Green light from councillors in terms of it, and a green light from the external auditors on value for money for our force as well. So it's a really positive move forward. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly pick up on your reference to noise cameras. I'd be shot, not only in my own ward, but I think in the city if I didn't raise it. You say you've only got 7 councillors. Would you like councillors to write to you about this? Because if so, I can probably get almost every council in Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly to write to you about that. I don't know that that's necessarily the right way, but I think these noise cameras are going to do, I think, you know, I've been raising it with you for a long time, even before the previous pilot was announced, I've been raising it. I think there is another issue that does need to be looked at with this, and that's about group behaviour. Because an individual vehicle can pass the noise test. You put a group of vehicles together and they don't. And actually what we have a lot with motorbikes isn't 1, it's 5, 10. On a bike night in Plymouth or a Sunday morning, actually a Saturday afternoon, it can be 15, 20, 30 going round together. And if they're noisy and they're revving in. So I think it would be useful for you to be pushing on the behaviour of vehicles together as well as the behaviour of vehicles independently when you're looking at that, because that is clearly a thing for the police. But I would support that, and I would still actively support some noise cameras around the real trouble spots in Plymouth, and I'm sure there would be other people who would do the same. So if you want us, just let us know and we'll get everyone to write to you.
Thank you, Chair. Just so you know, Councillor Penberthy, you are in my mind every time we talk about noise cameras, and it's been the most painful, challenging innovation that we've managed to achieve in Devon and Cornwall. And I have had other people obviously request it, but I would say Plymouth is definitely next because you've been requesting it for many years in the hopes that we could have one. We had some challenges. You know what it's like. You have to even have a new lamppost to put something new on it because it was too decrepit where we're trialling it at the moment. But yeah, I think they're going to be quite, if they work really well and I work out how much they actually cost and what the full gambit is, it'd be worth sharing that with all local authorities actually in terms of that. Just to say, though, about the group situation, there are some really great pieces of work that the police have been doing around engaging with particularly bike nights. And at Vision Zero, we've got motorbike staff who go out and engage about safety and talk about some of those noise issues. They also have Sergeant Owen Messenger, who I've mentioned many times before. He's sort of a famous police officer in Devon and Cornwall, to the young custom car crowd who like the noisy exhausts and the tinted windows and the things that actually might make them illegal while they're driving, which reaches millions of views, and he's giving really good advice to all other custom car lots. So there's been quite a lot of effort in that space. But what I would strongly suggest, if you can get the dates and the times, and I would love to check if the police have attended or they have done any engagement. They usually do it in advance of them, but if you have a specific event or things that are happening, do let us know and we'll do a check that there's been some proactive engagement.
I think probably for a lot of us, there are spaces that are used. It might be car parks, which, you know, Jenny Cliff or Ham or wherever in Plymouth. Southside Street is basically a chasm, and you put a group of motorbikes going down Southside Street. Actually, you can hear it in adjoining streets. It wrecks businesses. It's wrecking the enjoyment of lots of people, and that's where I think it's about some of the extras that would be really useful. And we are working with bike nights, but I think the more we can do on this and the more we can talk about responsible ownership and riding rather than anything else, I think the police are probably aware of most of it. And it might well be our inspector who's talked to you because we bend his ear consistently.
Okay, Vice Chair.
Sorry, it's me again. Mine's slightly parochial as well. I know I spoke to Nikki the other day on an informal basis around CCTV funding. I was welcome the CCT funding, obviously particularly for Weeks at Mary, which is a little parish of mine that's looking to protect its playing fields and such like. But there is a bit of a bigger issue around viewed CCTV. The fact that it's currently located in the police station, and I sort of asked informally with Nikki as to whether there's any funding for that, because obviously at the moment they're being sort of moved on politely is probably the right way of putting it. But as is being documented, CCTV is a huge asset for policing, particularly in rural areas. So I was wondering how I go about, or how anybody can access more funding for what in this case is actually quite a significant investment probably to move it from inside the police and to outside. So it's, as I say, a very parochial, I'm afraid.
I believe you've contacted me formally about it. I know that Nikki has actually asked about what's happening with that. We had a similar issue in Camborne when we're doing the refurbishment of the police station. There was a CCTV server of the councils in a police station building, very legacy related, of very close partnership working, but inappropriate to have been in the police station. I think we'll work with you on how we make that happen. So I wouldn't panic about that. I think that's more about how can we work with you to make that happen, and we'll see what we can do in terms of alleviating the stress and the strain of trying to get that somewhere else. I think what we probably need you to do is find the location, and we'll work with you on how we achieve that. Because I'm really delighted that there's over 20 areas that are being funded by the CCTV fund that we did that have never had CCTV there before as well. So really pleased that people came forward to request it, but we will work with you on that, Councillor Chopak.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you. I just want to sort of flag up and comment on a couple of things in your report. There are things, interventions that you've made and grant funding that you've given, which has really made a difference. So one of the things was to start up a community safety team in Exeter. And I know we got a one-year one-off grant twice. And I know you said last year, we can't keep doing that, which I understand, and the council has now found the budget to actually, I thought you'd like that bit of good news. So we've made them permanent, and we're also increasing the team. Obviously, that's had to come from our council budget. We're still getting some input from in-Exeter bid, but just want you to know that, these initiatives, sometimes having somebody that sees this as important can really help. So even though you might be expecting me to have a go at you politically for anything, I'm not going to. I'm going to say it actually does make a difference having that focus on community safety, and particularly on safety of women and girls. So the other bit of good news you might like is Exeter was awarded Purple Flags status this week, and the police team in Exeter working very hard in Exeter with the council and all the businesses, the brilliant businesses we've got in the nighttime economy in Exeter. So community safety is a big thing which everybody is concerned about. It's not just daytime antisocial behaviour, it's also behaviour that results from drugs taking results from drugs dealing. So really glad to see the focus from yourself and the Chief Constable as well in maintaining Operation Scorpion, is it? To really actually get these drugs dealers off our streets. So I just wanted to say that that's all been good news. I feel like I should offer some sort of criticism at some point here, really, and I'm not going to. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. Well, congratulations, Exeter. I don't want to dampen it, but Plymouth got their purple flag there a bit before you. But isn't it fantastic that the two cities in Devon have achieved the example of how you can feel safe on a great night out, and that's really fantastic news. And well done for picking up the funding. One of the things, and I think this is sort of missed, it's really easy for policing to see it, look at everything too big and not really get into the minutiae of the things that really matter. And those direct awards that we can sometimes do for a couple of years to get something seen and get it visible and get it started, to get the excitement around some sort of way to sustain it, that's absolutely brilliant, and well done to Exeter City Council for that. And Operation Scorpion, what I will say, we don't need a regional police force, just put police and crime commissioners in charge of it. Op Scorpion is a brilliant example of how we work really closely regionally without the need to be one big police force. We are the only region in the country that works in this way, and we do recognise our identity as the Southwest. We do expect that, but Operation Scorpion's been a resounding success. We've had reduced county lines. We've had the most disruptions in the country as a region. It's been absolutely amazing. So I appreciate the actual results on the streets. is incredible, and our police officers have been fantastic. And I will just add on that the pubs against drugs. That I was only in Paynton the other night, and normally I'm always in Liskeard or Loo or South East Cornwall somewhere because they've been running the scheme for quite a while. But the pubs against drugs is absolutely fantastic with the passive drugs dogs going into the licensed premises. The managers want to see the police. They're delighted that they've come in to do it. You don't have loads of arrests, but the profile of actually saying this is a safe night out and the reassurance it gives you is incredible. And I want to thank the council licensing officers from everybody who goes out and supports that as well. It's been really helpful and reassuring. But well done, Exeter.
Yes, congratulations, Exeter, and welcome to the team. And hopefully you'll be able to keep yours as many years as we've been keeping ours. So thank you. Commissioner, I'm going to jump in and ask a question really, well, comments really about the Knife Angel. I would like to say thank you very much to yourself and all your officers for the support of the Knife Angel. And I hope to welcome you here in the city when it arrives. And also for your support in our Safe bus. People do tend to get that quite mixed up between a paying bus to a safe bus. But unfortunately, I do have a bit of criticism. And it's regarding some grant funding that you've used to do with self-swabbing rape kits. I don't know if you're aware, but Safer Plymouth and partners do not support the use of the safe swabbing kits in the city, are not working with any organisation to promote this. Safer Plymouth supports the best practice pathway around sexual violence, specialised support that is strongly established in our city, including the SARGs, and therapeutic supports and ISVAS as well. And I think it really does come back to where we were talking about earlier on, about how important it is to have that correct evidence, forensic evidence, when our victims come forward. So it does come with disappointment that I'm under the impression that you have supported that. But let me leave it on a better note. Thank you very much for the stuff that you have supported us, and I'm sure from Plymouth's point of view you will continue while you're in your post to carry on supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just help you with some clarification about your concern in particular. Let's just be really frank. The conviction rate for rape is woeful across the country. Right? And it even doesn't matter if you have forensic evidence. If it's a he said, she said, or a he said, then it's still played out in court and they don't win a conviction. So let's be really clear, the system right now doesn't actually work for rape victims, so which is why I ran that workshop in the summer around how can we come up with better ideas to disrupt violence against women and girls. I currently do not fund the self-swabbing that you mentioned. What I've been willing to fund, because I'm looking at disruption, is an evaluation of their work. And at the moment, we haven't got to a conclusion of what that looks like or when that might need to be funded. So just to reassure you, I'm not paying for any delivery of that service. What I'm willing to do, though, because I'm trying to establish what disruption could look like, to evaluate how that works. So, I'm sure you would support me in testing new ideas that prove or disprove that they are helpful to rape victims.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll take that offline and we can meet up afterwards. Councillor Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, I'm going to add some thank yous. I'm very pleased to hear that we're continuing street wardens and PCSOs, and the night bus will continue to keep people safe. And thank you for accepting our invitation for Friday the 13th up at, you'll be coming to Cadsdown in Bideford to meet the councillors. I haven't circulated it out to councillors yet, but if we'd just like to tie up the times, if you want morning or afternoon or during the day, I'll correspond with your office and we'll tie things through. But thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't doubly confirmed my diary for Friday the 13th, but I believe I am available. So I can't say right now today, but I can check immediatally after. But I'm
take it offline.
Very happy, very
won't
happy.
be here.
It's Friday the 13th, Councillor Hackett. So, I mean, we're very interesting.
We could have had you here for the meeting.
Think lucky,
Oh,
be
is
lucky.
it? No, that's
Think
why I
lucky, be
definitely
lucky.
can. No, I definitely can. But what I will add is actually the Barnstable, Bideford, Ilfracombe night bus route has been so successful, they're going to run it, hopefully, as a commercially viable option. So it won't need to be funded from me. So it's been a really good example of how that night bus is safely transporting people around. It's reducing public order and disorder in the nighttime economy, and potentially made it commercially viable. So the North Devon scheme's probably been the most successful, besides the South Devon Torquay that's just starting to take off the ground.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to close item 6. Do we have any recommendations from panel members? No?
We note the report. We note.
Everyone's happy to note the report? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so moving on to item 8. Item 8 is 7. Oh, 7, are we already on 7? Gosh. Item 7, Commissioner, can I hand over to you? But again, I'm going to ask that members have read their papers, and if you're happy, I'm just going to go straight to questions, please, on it, unless there's something in particular you wanted to say.
So just a couple of bits, some's technical. So one, we've expanded the ASB element that Councillor Czapieski was really keen to see the breakdown and what those offences look like. The young persons victim of crime scrutiny is taking place on the 11th of February at a Commissioner's Accountability Board. As you can see on the performance chart, it's one of the areas that I've said requires extra scrutiny. And I think those are the two key things I wanted to highlight that's not in the report.
Thank you for being brief, Commissioner. Any questions? Councillor Pemberthy.
Just a quick one. You talked earlier about public confidence in the police in terms of the ability for police to do their job and the mandate to do that. It's quite worrying to see the ongoing decline in public confidence that the measures in your report are showing are on pages 118 and in detail on 131. In fact, the only thing that seems to be going up, which you yourself highlight, is the repeat offending. I think, when I'm watching, and I know social media commentary isn't the best place to watch, but we're all watching it, on lots of issues now, it's, the police don't turn up, the police won't enforce, the police won't. We know that's not true, but the perception is the police don't step in. This week there's been commentary about, I don't know, once again it's a technicality, but 18 police misconduct notices issued around Claire Chick's appalling murder, and in fact just down the road from that in recent weeks we've had 2 more murders in Plymouth, and this is sort of adding up to something. So I'm just wondering what's being actively done to build confidence rather than just sort of say, oh, well, it's a problem, it's declining, because at the moment I'm not sure what the activity to build confidence in the police is.
Thank you, Chair. So as you know, there's 2 elements where how I measure public confidence. One's through the resident survey, through the budget report, which isn't a representative sample, it's self-selecting. And then this data is the forces data. Is it the forces data? I'm just double checking. I haven't got my glasses on. This data is the, thank you. I'm just double checking if it's the national CAS. Forces data. It is the forces data. So I was just double checking if it was the, I know it's different to what we're measuring in our budget survey. So this is a representative sample, so it helps you get a much better flavour of what the situation is. Yes, it's gone down 2% from 77 to 75, I think. Again, I've just taken my glasses off. But what I will tell you that the force is doing, so there's a number of things. One is that they answer the phone when you ring and you need them. The second is they come when you call, well, you know, the 999s, they come when you call. That's going to be a challenge for us, by the way, because in the performance regime that the government have just announced this week, partially through the white paper, is that we have to get there as Devon and Cornwall within 20 minutes. Now, that sounds like a long time, I know, but our geography, rural geography, it's going to be a real challenge for our force to get to every emergency within 20 minutes if it's in Linford or Linton or somewhere on the outskirts. So we will have a challenge for us there. So it's the actions of the police that builds confidence. It's when you report, it actually gets investigated. So as you know, with the Chief Constable mentioning about investigative standards is still an area that needs improvement. That is one of the biggest areas we know victims get frustrated about, is not being updated on a crime, the investigation taking too long, and then potentially no further action at the end of it. So those are the sorts of actions that the police take to build public confidence, and the Chief is, you know, really focused on improving the performance of the force for those who need them, and need that to be happening swifter than it does at the moment.
I think the measure is one about public confidence, not just those who need to call the police, which is why I was asking the question, because that's not about the people who engage with the police, it's with the public. Worryingly, despite the drop from 77 to 75% on generically, there's a drop of 78% to 75% on the percentage of people agreeing the police would treat everyone fairly, which sort of goes back to my previous comments.
Chair, just to add, one of the biggest issues which the government helped with over the last couple of years is the hotspot high visibility policing, which really did improve public confidence in the places where they had them, and the street marshals and all of that sort of public visibility, which we've got a bit of navel gazing to do over this year by not having hotspot policing about how we're going to work with the force to deliver that level of visibility that was achieved through that. So we have got a problem and a challenge going forward that we haven't even had a chance to think about at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Gordon?
Thank you. Start off, thank you very much for the ASB report, as you said. Is this going to be a regular report that will be updated, and much more importantly, does the force, the people who use it, do they see this as a tool in helping them to encourage reporting? Because there's still comments in there about the uncertainty of the figures. And I think that's the next step, is to find a method, if there isn't one already, of establishing whether what we're seeing reported is truly reflecting what's in reality. And I also take this report back to my local council ASB's reporters and see if I can get some comparable figures and come back to you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, there is some, I think it's helpful that we've put that in there for the breakdown so you understand what elements the police are recording on their systems. So thank you for the recommendation. But also we've put in there the ASB case reviews that used to be called the community trigger. Again, this is an area, and it may be something that local authorities want to consider. You may want to do your own ASB case reviews, because I am the appeals process for that, and I thought some visibility of the level of work that's and the numbers that we get through would be helpful for you to understand, because in my absence and not being here, I'm not sure the new entity will be dealing with the ASB case reviews, so we need to work out where that may go. So there's some increased visibility for you as well around how I'm seeing the process of people who are struggling with ASP and don't feel like they're getting a response from any of the agencies, not just the police, it could be any of the agencies. I'm the appeals body for that. But I just want to thank all my colleagues and all of the councils who work really hard and tirelessly to actually try and support people who are struggling with specifically targeted ASB, whether that's in a housing association or it's within a council accommodation or it's in the community generally. There is a lot of really good teamwork on trying to tackle ASB, largely led by the councils, and we'd like to see that continuing going forward.
Okay, I'm going to close item 7 down now. Do we have any recommendations for item 7? No? Are members happy just to note the papers? Thank you. We are now going on to item 8. The next item is obviously non-criminal complaints against the Police and Crime Commissioner. do you want me to hand over to yourself, Fran, first?
Thank you, Chair. You'll see from the report that there have been two. One was in relation to a late receipt of a complaint from a matter this panel's already considered in relation to the Commissioner's comments. The second one was recorded but later disapplied because it didn't meet the criteria. Both have been discussed with the Chair, and I believe you've had any paperwork that's been circulated through the Secretariat.
Thank you, Fran, and we can confirm that it has been circulated. So that was just to note, members. Moving on to item 9 is our action log. So I'm just going through it. Anything that anybody would like to raise regarding the action log, please? Councillor Penberthy?
I'm on a theme today, I'm afraid. We raised some issues last time that were around community cohesion, equalities. I noticed items 36, 38 and 40, which were sort of updates from you, that some of them were just clarifications or confirmations. All of them are in progress. That's an EIA on OpResolve, clarity, read the future of the diverse communities team, and support for third-party reporting. I just think when we look at those, are the police treating us fairly, and the whole issue of equalities impact assessments and public sector equalities duty, there's a bit of a feel that it doesn't matter. Now, I don't necessarily believe that that's what you feel, but at the moment, looking at the reporting, there's a bit of a feel that it doesn't matter. So could we have those resolved by the next meeting, please?
Okay, no other questions. Okay, so again, just to note that, we're going to go on to our work programme. On item 10, is there anything that any members would like to add to our work programme? No, silence. Okay, so, sorry, Vice Chair?
Sorry, just to sort of, I'm not sure it could be there as a rolling item, considering obviously we're now talking about potential changes through the white paper. Would be able to add something either within our work programme or on a rolling agenda item, as if there are any updates on that, rather than it being absorbed into the work programme? Sorry, question.
Okay, Fran, would you like to come in on that one?
Thank you, Chair. I'd really welcome that, and I think because we're not clear about what the timescale is for the white paper, and if police and crime boards come into effect in 2028, what's normal in local government is that things are in shadow a year in advance. So by this time next year, we might be considering what a shadow police and crime board might look like. I think it would be helpful to frame some of your work plan as to what might be most helpful in that context, to give you a bit of a head start in terms of some of that thinking. I know I'm running a bit of a session at the beginning of April on what the contents of the white paper might be, and so maybe after that we could have a discussion about how we help you best frame that work programme so you get as much out of it as you can.
Okay, that's very helpful, thank you. And Jake has noticed that. Okay, members. I do apologise, Kevin.
Do I understand that this will be a rolling agenda item? Because I think that might be helpful.
Yes, it can be, if you're quite happy. Yeah, members happy? Okay, Gordon?
Hi, Councillor Czapieski. Would it be pertinent to add custody suite situation onto the work plan, because the situation has changed based on what's been said, and we visited the custody suite in Exeter. If there's going to be a long-term delay in upgrading custody suites, then it might be worth considering a visit to an older custody suite so this panel can get an idea of what the challenges are and might be, not as a jolly, but something that would fit in with an understanding of how the force is going to approach the issue with all the transition. It's going to be a very messy thing. Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly would support that. You know, unfortunately, I wasn't able to accompany you this time, but I have been to Exeter on their grand opening and been in their custody suite. And yeah, as a good girl, may I say. And so I have seen the bad and the good. So I think it would really pay for the panel. Let me make that clear. It was as a member of the panel that I was there, all right, just in case anyone wants to say it different. So we can add that to our work programme. I'm sure the Commissioner would welcome that. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have I missed out? No? Okay. Well, members, I'm quite happy to draw this meeting to a close. Can I thank you all? It's always a very difficult meeting, especially as a chair, you have to remember to say the right things. So, you know, Jake has done a wonderful job supporting me, and so has my vice chair. So thank you very much. Lunch will be downstairs in the normal place. Take care going home.